This is a joint event with NewFinance and Coinscrum, hosted by T15B. Somebody said they didn't know who that was. Do you want to explain?
We're based here, T15B, which is a co-working space for Bitcoin companies in London. There's about 9 or 10 companies, about 20 of us working away downstairs on various projects. London's being looked at as a hub in this space because we've got the perfect mix of technology sector and finance sector. Banking, as we may chat about later, is a major issue in the UK, so it's stifling some of the innovation. But we've got a perfect mix to push forward and push the technology itself.
So we've basically got 4 speakers. Adam's going to start off. So without further ado, let me hand you over to Adam Cleary.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a human reaction to centralization. The core of Bitcoin is decentralization. That is the key point about Bitcoin. If you wonder why Bitcoin exists, it's because we want a decentralized currency. That's the real reason why we want Bitcoin. We do not want a currency that is controlled by central banks and centralized institutions that are too big to fail. So whenever anyone tells you that Apple Pay is going to do away with Bitcoin, no, it isn't, because Apple Pay is just another intermediary on the top of Bitcoin. So moving on to what is Bitcoin. Again, what is Bitcoin? It's an internet currency. It's a protocol that enables the transfer of value peer-to-peer directly from person to person on a decentralized, trustless basis. There is no central authority or issuer. The code is open sourced. It can be viewed by anybody, and it is maintained by the community. Bitcoin is held in a wallet, which is directly controlled by the user. So it can be on your phone. It can be on the internet. It is secured by cryptography and mathematics. So basically, each address has a public key and a private key, and the private key is kept secret. You put the 2 keys together, the public key plus the private key, and that unlocks the Bitcoin and allows access and transmission to the holder of the private key. So the person who owns the private key owns the Bitcoin. Okay, this is a screenshot of blockchain.info. Blockchain.info is probably the best and easiest place to start. If you haven't got a Bitcoin wallet and you want to have one, go to blockchain.info. Literally nothing basically is required to open a blockchain wallet. You don't have to give your inside leg measurement or your passport or verify anything. You just open a blockchain.info wallet and you have a wallet. The genius of Bitcoin is that by design it is decentralized, allowing for trust to be distributed. So you don't have to trust any central authority. And if one or several nodes in the system fail, that does not bring down the system as a whole. So this distributed trust is achieved by the introduction of this concept of the blockchain, which is arguably an invention that is even more radical than Bitcoin itself. The blockchain is effectively a public ledger where transactions and holdings of Bitcoin are recorded, and new transactions are confirmed independently and continuously by network participants known as miners. So here we can see the latest transactions on the Bitcoin network going on all the time as they occur. It's basically a public ledger where all the transactions are recorded and shown continuously all the time. This is a Bitcoin miner digging away for Bitcoin. Basically, miners are trying to harvest newly created Bitcoins by a mining process which involves verifying Bitcoin transactions while trying to solve a mathematical algorithm to find a specified value. So if you find this value, you unlock the current block and you release the newly created Bitcoins. The protocol releases Bitcoins at a predefined rate, which adjusts automatically depending on the amount of participants on the network. So if there are many miners, difficulty rises. If there are fewer, it falls. The total number of Bitcoins is capped at 21 million, and so to date, 13 million have been mined, and the rate at which they're issued is scheduled to fall progressively over time until it reaches the cap. So Bitcoin is designed to be deflationary as well as decentralized and trustless. Deflation is built into it. So this is a Byzantine general's slide. So in scientific terms, the invention of the blockchain, of Bitcoin and the blockchain, has provided a solution to something called the Byzantine general's problem, which is an agreement problem in decentralized systems. And the problem is that transactions or instructions that originate remotely cannot be independently verified without reference to a central authority. And it's called the Byzantine generals problem because none of the Byzantine generals trusted each other to pass messages between each other because they thought they were all going to betray each other. So the Bitcoin and the blockchain is designed to overcome this problem, the fact that you can trust people without there being any central authority. Next. So how do you overcome this problem in Bitcoin? What happens is that network participants, the miners, they work in parallel to create a chain of pieces of data that are costly and difficult to produce. Generating the piece of data, which is known as the proof of work, is difficult so that even with all participants working at the same time, it takes 10 minutes before one of them finds a solution and broadcasts it to the network. And once a solution is broadcast, everyone adopts the winning solution and works on the longest chain, on the longest block, and adds the next block to the longest winning solution effectively. So this proof of work chain, which is the blockchain, is the key to overcome Byzantine failures and to overcome and to acquire a coherent view of the system state as a whole without having to trust any central authority and without any trust between participants. And a sort of consequential element of this is that by being distributed and decentralized, the Bitcoin network is intended to be immune to plenary power shutdown and strong enough to withstand an attack from outside computational power. Next. So obviously there are lots of skeptics about Bitcoin, but I think that I'll just end by pointing out this quote from Mark Andreessen, who I think points out that as the way people used to talk about the internet in 1993 and 1994 is the way that people talk about Bitcoin today. And I think that, as he says, we just need time for it to play out. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much.